Hey folks, hi, how are you? How are you doing? I'm doing okay. Yesterday we had a lovely 2.5 hour satsang with a nice group of people. And speaking of satsangs, speaking of um, next events in the calendar, on Saturday this week, on 30th of May, I will give Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Tsogyal Guru Yoga Empowerment, which is open to all. Everybody is welcome to join that. You can find the details of all the events on our Open Heart website, openheartofallbeings.com. So this Saturday on 30th May, there will be Guru Yoga Empowerment of Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Tsogyal. And then the following weekend, on the first weekend of June, 6th, 7th of June, Saturday, Sunday, I will be teaching in Birmingham, UK, in our city center there. And the teachings will be about, meditation in general, body work, what do you call it? Physical cultivation also. So specifically, the teachings will be about the so-called bone marrow washing. I usually don't use the term bone marrow washing, but it's a term that people know because it's a translation of the Chinese Xi Shui Jing. But I teach it under the name Immortality Exercises. So that will be the teachings on the first weekend of June in UK. Everybody welcome. And then the next event after that will be a satsang, 2.5 hours of teachings on the 14th of June. And I will be in Finland then, and the time of that teaching will be a bit different because it will be on Sunday morning in Finland. So 9:30 to midday Finnish time. So Sunday, 14th June. Okay, this episode number 15, we've gotten that far, will be a follow-up or a part 2 on episode 7, which is called How to Measure Awakening. So part 2 on how to measure awakening. There was somebody who asked this very good technical question. It is apparent that this person has looked into the materials that I have presented, videos and books that I suggested people to look into in that episode 7 video. And I'm really happy to see that there people are actually listening, because it is possible, again, it is possible to measure awakening. So I already, if you haven't watched episode 7, look at it before continuing further, because now I'm gonna go a bit deeper into the technical details of this awakening mapping, should I say. So here's Bonfire's comment or question. Dear Baba, I am grateful for all of your teachings, but I have some questions. Why, in the 13 Bhumi model, is it that perfecting up to the 10th Bhumi is considered completion of the path of wisdom and clarity? That's question number 1. Question number 2, what happens with Bhumis 11 through 13 and perfecting them? That's question number 2. Also, I understand your Bhumi analysis, but I'm wondering how one measures the astral body and its purification / completeness as well as physical. The Bhumis with their centers make sense or is easy to understand how to measure, but I do not understand or am curious as to more specifically how one could measure the astral body. for themselves and others, like how you can in Bhumi analysis, or if this is even possible. Thank you for your time and blessings to you, your students, Sangha, and all beings. Blessings to you too. Thank you very much. So, kind of 3-4 questions here. The first one, why in the 13 Bhumi model is it that perfecting up to the 10th Bhumi is considered completion of the path of wisdom and clarity? That's because the 10 Bhumis, the 10 layers, Bhumi is a Sanskrit word which literally means ground, ground. But you could easily say layers. We are talking about different layers in our causal body or subtlest of the energetical bodies. So once again, we have 3 different bodies: physical, astral, and causal. Physical made of physical tissues, astral body made of astral fabric. These are called meridians in traditional Chinese medicine. But traditional Chinese medicine only speaks about, it depends of the tradition within TCM, but they often speak of dozen or 24 or 25 meridian channels. But and if you look at the meridian charts, where the meridians go and where the acupuncture points go, you can see from the map that they use that there are these meridians, because there are so few, from 1 dozen to 2 dozen. There are lots of space in between them in the body. But actually, the astral body and the meridian system as a whole, there are hundreds of them. The whole non-physical space inside the body is full of these channels. And one meridian channel is roughly the width of my little finger, or maybe roughly the width of my index finger. And we are talking about very long lines, and they, just like you can see in TCM charts, they go all over the place. How they exactly go isn't necessary. Is not necessary to know in order to purify the whole meridian system, which means including possible psychological trauma and returning any type of negativity, these emotional afflictions, into basic positivity. It is not necessary to know what is enough to know about the astral body, the meridian system, is that the whole non-physical space inside the body is full of these channels. So it's like a massive whole body size bundle of these channels. So physical body with physical tissues and organs, astral body with hundreds of meridian channels, and then we have the causal body, or what in open heart we call causal body, which is the subtlest of the 2 subtle bodies, where there are thinner channels than meridians. They are thinner and lighter, like lighter in terms of weight. So the sensation between astral body and causal body, which the causal channels, or we call them nadi channels, are both inside the body as well as outside the body, creates the aura and creates the vertical pillar. Very few traditions and training systems speak of the vertical pillar, but we all have the vertical pillar. I've talked about this in my explanations of the 13 Bhumi model, which, by the way, is an ancient knowledge, ancient toolbox, you could say, used by ancient Naths, yogis, tantrics, And there's also lots of literature about Bhumis in Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhism. But Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhists, most of them, the vast majority of them anyway, forgot how to read, how to apply Bhumis. So I've spoken about what I've just said. I've spoken about this in my books, all three of them, from Awake to What's Next to Buddhas Among Us. You can get those books from the website easily and read them and acquaint yourself with the basic information. Okay, Metta woke up from nap. Hyvä. She wants to join me in YouTube. So, what was I saying? So, why is it that perfecting up to the 10th Bhumi is considered completion of the path of wisdom and clarity? So, in Open Heart, we have three paths: path of wisdom and clarity for the causal body, path of healing and light for the astral body, and the path of health and great bliss for the physical body. And the practices have lots of similarity, but the reason why there is also differences is because is in the tone, in the feel of the three bodies, which simply means that they are three, they are closely connected. It's a continuum of the three bodies, but they need to be exercised and addressed separately. And if we don't do that, I've spoken about this, that if and when this distinction between especially the two subtle bodies is not done, how this harmfully affects one's practice. Because these two subtle bodies have completely different feel, have completely different purposes, and like, if I make this understandable, what I'm meaning is that in Buddhism we speak of the 5 poisons, the 5 afflictions, which are ignorance. Ignorance is the most fundamental one. So there is ignorance, meaning selfing, dualistic ignorance. That's number 1. And then there are the 4 kind of that have emotional quality, which are attachment, aversion, jealousy, and greed. So we have these 5 poisons. And these 5 poisons, when we speak of the 2 subtle bodies, are spread in this way, that this ignorance, this avidya klesha, this selfing, happens here in the causal body. And these rest 4 happen here in the astral body and partially in the physical body. But this is exactly the problem, that when it's not known, Metta, I'm trying to make this YouTube and Metta is demanding my attention. Käypä siihen, käy siihen viekaan. Hyvä, käy siihen. So when it's not understood that, okay, she wants to star in my video again. Let's take a proper image. Here she is. Hyvä tyttö. Good girl. Now Daddy will continue. So when the ins and outs of these 5 kleshas in these 2 different subtle bodies is not understood, people end up wasting years and decades and lifetimes in practice that doesn't really work, is not understandable, and is not really applicable, doesn't work well. So anybody can understand that this being the case, and this applies to everybody. Nobody is an exception to this. So, everybody can therefore understand that how important it is to get this basic theory right, no matter which tradition you follow. If you want to transform the 5 poisons, the Panchaklesha, into 5 wisdoms, Panchagyana, and attain the so-called enlightenment, Buddhahood, this is required knowledge. This is required information. So there is no way around it. These are universal facts. So coming back to Bonfire's first question, why in the 13 Bhumi model is it that perfecting up to the 10th Bhumi is considered completion of the path of wisdom and clarity? So this path of wisdom and clarity, causal body path. This is because even though there are 13 distinct layers or bhumis in the causal body, only 10 of them, or 10 is a majority, but 10 of them are stores this delusion of selfing. So 10 of them, in those 10 of them, I've spoken about this in my books. I think in What's Next, I spoke about it the most in my second book. But these 10 layers, these 10 bhumis, which literally means most of the causal body channels, nadi channels inside the physical body, and as well as in the aura, that's the 10th bhumi terrain. So, and to be more specific, the bhumis 1 through 6 are inside the physical body, and then the bhumis 7, 8, 9, 10 create the aura. But the basic reason is that, like I said, that the 10 bhumis, these layers, these vibrational fields are the ones where the selfing is stored, where the self-delusion and the self-delusional habits are stored in gross, subtle, and very subtle manner. So that's why. And what this means, the second question, what happens with bhumis 11 through 13 and perfecting them? This is a beautiful question, really. Bhumis 11 through 13. So obviously when I say bhumis 11 through 13, it sounds something like this is something incredibly technical and boring to most. Just very boring. But what we're talking about here is our Buddha nature. Because the thing is that our subtle bodies are made of energy centers and channels and different types of energies. So no matter who you are, man, woman, east, west, north, south, we all have the same subtle bodies. We all have the same vibrational fields, energy centers, channels. We all have the same bhumis. So practically what bhumis 11 through 13, what they are, we call them Mahasiddha bhumis. Mahasiddha bhumis. Mahasiddha is a term that means fully enlightened master. And what Mahasiddha bhumi means, they are these energy centers and vibrational fields that are the Mahasiddha, the fully enlightened being in us. And these bhumis, I've been planning to make a video of the Dantians, like they are called in the Taoist yogas. Dantians are called khandas in Sanskrit in India. And I've been planning to make a video of these 3 Dantians. But the common basic theory of the Dantians is that there is one about fist-sized Dantian in the middle of one's head, and then in the middle of the chest, and then behind the navel inside the gut. So these directly correspond to Bhumis 11, 12, 13. But the thing is that these Dantians or Bhumis 11, 12, 13 are not only inside the body, but they are also at the extreme ends of the vertical energy pillar that we all have. So this is a basic teaching in open heart, and it really should be a basic teaching in all traditions, in all training systems, because we all have these dantians and we all have this vertical energy pillar, where at, like I said, at the extreme ends, 5-6 meters above the crown and 5-6 meters below the pelvic floor, there are these Bhumis or Mahasiddha Bhumis 11, 12, 13. What do these 11, 12, 13 or 11, 12, 13, what do they actually mean? Selfless clarity is the quality of 11th Bhumi. Aliveness, kindness, softness, joyfulness, playfulness, lovefulness, is that a word? Compassion, Bhumi 12, heart Dantian. And then Bhumi 13, relating to the gut, peacefulness, groundedness, equanimity, unshakability. So we are talking about something: selfless clarity, aliveness, kindness, softness, groundedness, peacefulness. We are talking about things that are constantly spoken of in all kinds of spiritual teachings, meditation teachings. But, well, you know, well, it's a valid side point that, like selfless clarity, for example, clarity of mind coming from selflessness. Um, there is, we need to understand the full scope of this selfless clarity, not just a little part from it. Same thing with softness, kindness, love, compassion. We need to understand the full scope of it, not just little bit of it. I'm saying same thing with the 13th Bhumi, low Dantian quality. We need to understand the full scope of peacefulness, groundedness, embodiment, not just a little bit of it. So I've spoken about these standards in internal yoga teaching that needs to be established in the world of yoga, and that are set by our energy system. So not as some external standards, words and descriptions, but the standards that are made by our energy systems. So these standards are already in us. So what happens with Bhumis 11 through 13 and perfecting them? So when the 10 Bhumis and all the self-delusion in gross, subtle and very subtle form, when they are out of the picture, what is left? Clarity, softness, sweetness, and groundedness, peacefulness. And simply what happens with the perfecting of the Mahasiddha Bhumis is that it's like, we don't need to purify the Bhumis 11 through 13, but we need to activate the subtle body in that manner, from that perspective. We need to activate, because that perfection of the Mahasiddha Bhumis is in, what do you call it, dormant state. So they need to be activated. And when they are activated or perfected, it simply means that there is this, when Mahasiddha Bhumis are perfected, those qualities of clarity, softness, groundedness become fuller. I've spoken about, I'm already going almost 25 minutes, so maybe I will save it for the other video for a full explanation. But what is special in our method of practice is that we can, because of some other revitalized practices that have been forgotten in the vast majority of other traditions, because of some of these practices like dynamic concentration together with bodhicitta, is why we have these awakening experiences so quickly. And what awakening experience is that, like I've spoken in my books, you know, when one has one awakening experience, it changes something permanently in the mind. What actually changes is that there is a Bhumi center, first Bhumi center here, right behind the eyes, which is exactly where the subject self, the grossest form of selfing, sits behind the eyes right there. So when awakening happens, whether you are an open heart practitioner or Eckhart Tolle or Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, or even if you didn't practice anything, it creates a hole there in the Bhumi, first Bhumi center. And then, if you're fortunate to have practices that will generate these awakenings, like we have in open heart, you know, with the help of such practices, we can make the second Bhumi open, third Bhumi, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th. And then what is really a paradigm shift is when the 11th Bhumi opens, when the first Mahasiddha Bhumi opens, because, and this is absolutely, this is so brilliant, this is beautiful from the perspective of, you know, recognizing our basic awareness effortlessly, because when we have that 11th opening, this means that we are, most of the time, we have effortless recognition of the basic state. In Dzogchen, in Tibetan Dzogchen, this is called recognition of Rigpa, recognition of knowing awareness. So when we speak of 11 awakening experiences, this might give association in one's head that, oh, this is something that will take me 15 years to accomplish. But no, here I made another video of mindfulness versus awareness, where I compared two different paradigms of meditative training, one based on mindfulness style and the other awareness style. And the thing with this awareness style is that you need to have techniques, tools that will enable you to recognize this effortless awareness from day one of your practice. And you know, how we do this in open heart is with the help of dynamic concentration, is that we shout lots of mantras. So controlled, sharp, punchy shouts, we do it. I recommend it for beginners of our training system to do it several hundred per day, like from 300 to 500 sharp shouts per day. And if you practice like this together with bodhicitta, so bodhicitta needs to be genuine. If you practice like this, it will take you a few months to a year, year and a half max on average, and your 11th Bhumi will be open. And then you will have effortlessly recognize this knowing awareness, knowing aspect of our nature, or Rigpa, like it's called. And it's a really big deal. It's a paradigm shift, because then you no longer need to go look for, you no longer need to re-establish this selfless clarity. So this is a major gift, and it's really wonderful to see this with people. Okay, then continue with the third question. I try to um, continue quickly so that this doesn't reach to an hour long. Also, I understand your Bhumi analysis, but I'm wondering how one measures the astral body and its purification, completeness, as well as physical. The Bhumis with their centers make sense or is easy to understand how to measure, but I don't understand, or I'm curious as to more specifically how one could measure the astral body for themselves and others, like how you can in Bhumi analysis, or if this is even possible. Yes, it is possible, but the astral body and the physical body, the physical tissues, they are not built in layers. They are not built in distinct layers. Rather, with astral body, with the meridian, hundreds of meridians that I just discussed, it's like a large bundle. It's like a continuous fabric. Continuous fabric. And the same thing with physical body. It's even though they are, here is skin, these are eyes, there is heart there, lungs here, liver here, there are distinct organs, but in internal practice, the practice doesn't really work that way, that you meditate on heart and then lungs and then liver and then whatever. It doesn't go like that. So in internal experience, it's just like one continuum like fabric, both in astral and physical bodies. However, even though it is like that, it is possible to measure advancement both in astral body purification and physical body purification. But there isn't really like a scale from 1 to 10 or 1 to 100. There isn't a scale there. Well, it kind of is, but it's more like, so again, when doing Bhumi analysis, what we do is that you either tune in with your own causal body and its distinct Bhumi centers, and then you feel in and you analyze. Or if you do it for another person, you tune into that person's causal body. So that tuning in and feeling is exactly the same with astral body and physical body. It's just that you don't have those distinct layers that would give you like a clear answer, stage 3, stage 7, like that. So it's more like when you feel into your own astral body or your fellow practitioner's astral body, you get, if you have enough sensitivity, you get like an echo, and you simply feel like if there is which areas are more clogged, blocked than others, which are open, and therefore which areas and how much there is still to work with. And the same thing with physical body. So it's like that. So it's kind of more stupider when it comes to astral body mapping and physical body mapping. But having said that, just like with the Bhumi analysis, if you know what you are tuning in, what you want to check, what you want to read, measure, what is essential is knowing how the causal body feels like, how astral body feels like, how physical body feels like. And developing that knowledge, that understanding requires a bit of training. But that's the good news, because it is possible to learn. This is the good news. So, sometimes, people, when I when we talk about this with my students, they are like, "Oh, it's so difficult to learn this mapping. It's so it's so challenging." Hello, there is a far more difficult option, which is not learn about mapping and Boomi analysis at all. Not, it's like, we are all on a journey from Boomi zero to full enlightenment, all Bhumis perfected, all astral body perfected, all physical body perfected. But how well do you think you will do on that journey without having a map at all? And that's the case in the vast majority of training systems. They are on a journey, but they don't have a map. And if you don't have a map, you have no clue where you are. You might have some basic references, but to properly travel, to do a journey, you need a map that you can read the terrain, you know where you begin, where all the intermediate stages, and then the final destination. This is how it really should be and needs to be if we want to attain full enlightenment in this life. There is no time to waste. And this is why I feel so passionately about this, because there are so many false views about this. Like I have spoken about some of these fundamental false views that really lead people astray. But this needs to stop because they are, let's say, proper teachings, actual practical maps and awakening techniques and enlightenment methods existing. So I feel about this passionately because I was one of those whose many years when I was a young man, from the best time of my youth, so much time was wasted because I was told that the people and masters who taught me said that there are no awakening practices and you can't measure awakening and you can't do this, can't do that, that these teachings simply didn't exist. And people therefore believe when authority says that. But one of the reasons why I started making these YouTubes on Baba's Secret Channel is to debunk, correct these false views. Okay, thank you very much, Bonfire 302, for this question. And thank you again for the blessings. Bless you too, and bless you all. Comments, questions, welcome. If you want to send me an email, my email is amrita.baba@hotmail.com. Okay, thank you very much and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.